Carl Jung, after 4 decades of deeply studying his patients, arrived at a conclusion that, on the surface, might sound like wishful delusion, but is, in fact, a psychological principle with real-world implications. He discovered that people who behaved as though life was on their side experienced vastly different outcomes than those who assumed the world was stacked against them. This shift in reality wasn't driven by blind optimism or the so-called power of manifestation. It stemmed from the undeniable influence of the psyche. Our minds continuously shape our experiences based on what they subconsciously expect. Here's where it gets truly unsettling, whether or not you're aware of it. You're already operating under a deep-seated assumption about how life treats you. It's not a matter of if you're acting as if you already are. The real question is, are you acting as if the universe is supporting you, or are you assuming it's working against you? That subtle, unconscious orientation is creating your lived experience more forcefully than any deliberate choice you've ever made. Jung believed this insight could profoundly reorganize your life, not through surface-level affirmations, but through a more radical internal shift. He theorized that the psyche emits a kind of magnetic field that draws in experiences that align with its deepest expectations. When your unconscious mind expects struggle, it filters and molds your world to reflect that. But when you assume life is here to support you, the opposite becomes true. Let's break this down with what Jung observed. 2 individuals with nearly identical life challenges responded in drastically different ways. One believed the universe was supportive. The other assumed it was antagonistic. The first person encountered help, luck, timing, and solutions appearing from unexpected places. The second found nothing but roadblocks, betrayals, and complications. And what's critical here is that they were dealing with the exact same objective reality. Their outcomes diverged solely because of their internal orientation, what Jung referred to as their psychological constellation. This term refers to the way your internal beliefs magnetically draw in external proof of their truth. You aren't merely observing reality. You're generating evidence to support what you already believe to be true. The mind doesn't passively receive the world. It interacts with it, shaping and coloring it through unconscious expectations. Your life begins to mirror the truths your psyche holds most deeply, whether supportive or destructive. But here's the powerful part. According to Jung, you're not stuck with your current assumptions. You can shift them not with toxic positivity or empty affirmations, but through the practice of acting as if. This doesn't mean pretending or lying to yourself. It means behaving as if a more supportive version of reality is true, even before you have proof. And when you act from this place sincerely, not out of desperation or denial, but from genuine openness, you initiate changes deep within your psyche that alter how reality responds to you. Jung's initial revelation about the act as if principle is that it dramatically amplifies synchronicities, those eerie, meaningful coincidences where it feels like the universe is arranging events in your favor, not because you're casting magical spells with your thoughts, but because you're finally open to perceiving and accepting the support that's always been there. When your unconscious is in defensive mode expecting problems, betrayals, and failure, it tunes your perception toward danger. Your senses become alert to threats, your thoughts anticipate breakdowns, and your behavior avoids risk. In this closed-off state, you become blind to opportunities, even when they're right in front of you. But when you shift to acting as if life works with you rather than against you, something in your mental landscape opens up. You become psychologically receptive, scanning your environment for solutions, not dangers. You're suddenly able to notice the opportunities, help, and resources that had previously gone unrecognized. This isn't mysticism, it's perceptual psychology. Your brain becomes attuned to the very support it once overlooked. Jung illustrated this with a case study. He worked with a woman who constantly lamented that life never gave her a break. She felt cursed, invisible, and unsupported. So Jung proposed a radical experiment. He didn't ask her to believe life was on her side. He simply asked her to act as if it was for 1 month. That's it. She was to carry herself, speak, move, and choose as though life were fundamentally supportive. Within a week, she was stunned by the shift. A stranger at a cafe mentioned a job opening she had long been searching for. A book she picked up randomly contained insights that addressed her most pressing challenge. An old friend reappeared with exactly the connection she needed. Were these events new? Not entirely. What changed was her attunement. She finally saw the help that had always been circling around her, but had previously gone unnoticed. Jung believed that both things were happening at once. By changing her psychological stance, she not only became available to pre-existing synchronicities, but also began attracting more of them. He argued that your psyche, when it genuinely expects life to assist you, communicates with reality in a way that invites that very assistance. It becomes a magnet for aligned experiences. Importantly, this isn't about forcing outcomes. It's about shifting into a psychological mode that makes favorable outcomes possible. You begin to co-create with reality rather than brace against it. That subtle but profound shift opens the door for experiences that mirror your positive stance. When you act as if things are working out, the feedback loop begins. You notice more support, which increases your belief in that support, which in turn deepens your psychological receptivity to even more support. Suddenly, you're no longer trapped in a self-reinforcing cycle of sabotage and disappointment. Instead, you've entered into a self-fulfilling prophecy of alignment and growth. Jung's second breakthrough regarding the act as if principle revolves around what he called the transcendent function, a psychological mechanism that allows you to discover third options in situations that appear to offer only two poor choices. Most people approach life with binary thinking, either this or that, win or lose, stay or leave, success or failure. This limited mindset stems from an unconscious assumption of scarcity, believing that options are few and the world is unforgiving. When you're locked into this either-or mode, your unconscious aligns with the belief that only narrow solutions exist. It filters out creative possibilities, blinds you to alternatives, and restricts your perception to the limited set of choices that reinforce your underlying assumption that life is a battleground. But here's the key. When you start acting as if life supports your well-being, your unconscious is given permission to explore beyond the obvious. You begin to consider combinations that had previously felt impossible, and your psyche naturally begins to synthesize solutions that honor both sides of a dilemma. This is the transcendent function in action. You're not choosing between competing values. You're transcending the very frame that made those values seem incompatible in the first place. Jung saw this over and over in his clinical practice. Patients trapped in impossible binds, security versus freedom, family obligations versus personal growth, passion versus responsibility, stayed stuck, as long as they believed they had to pick one at the cost of the other. But the moment they acted as if a solution must exist, even if it wasn't visible yet, their unconscious would begin to construct one. The act of assuming possibility created the mental space for possibility to emerge. Take the example of a businessman Jung worked with. This man was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy and believed his only options were to either sell his company to someone who would gut its core values or go down with the ship. From that mindset, every move he made further reinforced those limited options. But under Jung's guidance, he began to act as if a better alternative was already on its way, even though he couldn't yet see it. And then something unexpected happened. A potential business partner he'd long overlooked suddenly came into the picture. This individual offered a joint venture that preserved both the company's integrity and its financial viability. That option had always been available, but it only revealed itself once the man's psychological orientation changed. The transcendent solution required a new mindset to come into view. This principle is profound. When you act as if a graceful solution exists even in the midst of chaos, you invite your unconscious to create it. You don't do it through blind faith or naive positivity. You do it through assumption of possibility. That belief opens up internal resources that remain dormant when you assume life is against you. And again, Jung emphasized, this isn't about pretending that problems don't exist. It's about assuming that solutions do. You're not denying difficulty. You're refusing to be defined by it. You're stepping into a psychological stance that demands creativity, invites collaboration, and allows your inner architecture to support your external experience. Jung's third and perhaps most transformative insight into the act. As if principle involves the shadow, the collection of rejected, repressed, or disowned parts of your psyche. The shadow contains everything you've been conditioned to believe is unacceptable. Your anger, your power, your needs, your desires, even your joy. Most people live in fear of their shadow, not realizing it's influencing them from the background, silently sabotaging their lives. Now, here's where Jung's perspective gets revolutionary. He discovered that the way your shadow behaves, whether it helps or hinders you, is directly tied to your fundamental assumptions about life. If you act as if life is against you, your shadow becomes your saboteur. It works to confirm your belief that success is unattainable, that people can't be trusted, that happiness must be earned or withheld. Your repressed anger lashes out at opportunity. Your ignored power stirs up chaos. Your unloved self finds ways to implode moments of progress, and without realizing it, You'll keep reinforcing the exact reality you dread. But when you act as if life supports your growth and well-being, the shadow shifts roles. It no longer fights you, it joins you. Your repressed anger becomes energy to fuel change. Your abandoned power steps forward in key moments. Your disowned needs guide you toward fulfillment. Jung saw this transformation not as magic, but as the result of a new psychological agreement. When you assume life is safe, your shadow stops trying to protect you by sabotaging everything. It becomes your ally rather than your enemy. This insight came to life in Jung's work with a woman who constantly found herself unraveling her own success. Just when things were going well, she would unconsciously derail them, quitting, picking fights, or retreating into self-doubt. Through dream analysis and therapy, Jung helped her realize she was acting as if she didn't deserve good things. Her unconscious belief was that life was against her, and her shadow was cooperating with that story by ensuring she never experienced sustained success. But when she began acting as if she did deserve to thrive, as if life was conspiring in her favor, her internal dynamic began to shift. Those same sabotaging tendencies started to reverse. She noticed her instincts guiding her to the right decisions. Her confidence became more stable. Opportunities flowed with less resistance. What changed wasn't her circumstances. It was her relationship to her shadow. She stopped suppressing her power and started channeling it. Her shadow became a source of strength, not sabotage. This is a critical lesson. The shadow is neutral. It will serve whatever narrative you unconsciously accept. If you believe life is unsafe, the shadow protects you by keeping success at bay. If you believe life is generous, the shadow supports you by empowering your growth. You don't defeat the shadow. You partner with it by shifting your foundational assumption about life itself. Acting as if everything works out isn't just a trick of mindset. It's a deep invitation to rewire how your unconscious energy works on your behalf. It's a way of signaling to all parts of yourself, including the ones you're ashamed of, that it's okay to cooperate, to support, and to move forward. Jung's fourth insight into the power of acting, as if everything works out, brings us to one of his more mystical, yet empirically grounded concepts: participation mystique. This idea suggests that the psyche and the external world are not entirely separate. Your inner psychological state doesn't just interpret reality, it participates in creating it. In simpler terms, your mindset doesn't just influence how you see the world, it influences how the world responds to you. This might sound esoteric, but Jung witnessed this phenomenon over and over again in his clinical work and in his own life. When someone genuinely shifted their fundamental stance from resistance to trust, from fear to openness, the external world often responded in kind. Events, people, and opportunities didn't just feel different, they were different. The timing of events aligned better. People acted more generously. Solutions arrived more effortlessly. Take, for instance, Jung's own experiences during what he called his Red Book period, a time of deep inner exploration and visionary insight. Initially, he approached his inner experiences with fear and resistance, assuming they were signs of psychological breakdown. But when he began acting as if these visions were helping him, not hurting him, everything began to change. His dreams became more coherent. Patients with specific problems appeared at just the right moments. He would coincidentally encounter books or ideas that addressed his most urgent questions. Reality itself seemed to reorganize around his psychological transformation. He saw this same dynamic in his patients. One particularly striking example involved a struggling artist who was convinced the art world was closed to him. He viewed success as something reserved for others more talented, better connected, more deserving. Under Jung's guidance, he began to act as if the art world was waiting for him, not with arrogance, but with a quiet confidence that he belonged. Within a few months, he began receiving unexpected attention. A gallery owner expressed interest in his work. A collector commissioned a piece. Opportunities snowballed. His talent hadn't changed. What had shifted was the psychological field he was broadcasting into the world. This is the power of participation mystique. When you act as if the world welcomes you, you send out a psychological frequency that others unconsciously respond to. People sense your openness, your confidence, your grounded belief in possibility, and they respond with interest, support, and connection. This isn't manipulation or performance. It's authentic participation in the co-creation of your reality. When you act as if everything works out, you stop bracing for impact and start moving with purpose. You don't ignore reality, you influence it. You carry yourself differently, speak differently, make decisions with a kind of calm conviction, and the world, sensing that shift, begins to mirror it back to you. Life doesn't become perfect, but it does become responsive. This is the deeper layer of Jung's principle. Your psyche is part of the very fabric of the world. When you change your internal assumption, you change how the world interacts with you. You stop being a victim of randomness and begin to feel like a participant in something collaborative. The universe, as they say, starts to meet you halfway, not because it's been waiting, but because you finally showed up in the right way. Jung's final revelation about acting as if everything always works out connects deeply to what he believed was the core purpose of human life. Individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your truest, most complete self. According to Jung, the journey toward individuation is constantly shaped, either accelerated or obstructed by your underlying assumptions about life. If you assume life is here to support your growth, you will take the risks necessary to evolve. If you assume life is hostile or indifferent, you'll shrink into false roles, self-protection, and stagnation. Think about it. When you believe the universe has your back, you're far more likely to express your genuine interests, pursue your authentic desires, and move toward your purpose, even when those things are unconventional or uncertain. You're more willing to step outside societal expectations or personal fears because you assume, at a core level, that life supports you in becoming who you really are. But if you believe the world is constantly trying to knock you down, you'll make safe choices at the expense of authenticity. You'll stick to roles that feel secure, avoid self-expression, suppress your dreams, and ultimately betray your own nature, not because you want to, but because your fundamental assumption about reality doesn't give you permission to take the leap. Jung saw this dynamic in patient after patient. Those who believed life opposed them stayed stuck in repetitive patterns, jobs they hated, relationships that stifled them, identities that didn't fit. But those who began to act as if life wanted them to grow found the courage to change. They took creative risks. They said things they were previously too afraid to say. They followed paths that felt meaningful rather than merely acceptable. One man Jung worked with had spent 50 years living a life he didn't recognize as his own. He'd hidden his sensitivity, his creativity, his true voice, all because he assumed being himself would lead to rejection. But once he started acting as if life welcomed his authenticity, his entire energy shifted. He began showing up differently in conversations, in choices, in presence, and rather than being rejected, he found community, he found opportunity, he found joy. He discovered that life did support him, but only once he stopped hiding. This is the essence of Jung's insight. You don't need life to guarantee your success. You need to believe it's safe to try. Acting as if everything works out doesn't mean expecting perfection. It means trusting the process, having faith in the unfolding, and walking your path with openness rather than fear. And here's the most important takeaway. You're already acting as if something is true. Right now, you might be acting as if you're unworthy, unsupported, or doomed to struggle. And the world, in turn, is reflecting that belief back to you. But that reality isn't fixed. It's responding to your assumption. Change the assumption, and the evidence will change with it. So try Jung's experiment for 1 week. Approach every situation, no matter how ordinary or challenging, as if life is trying to help you. That delay, assume it's redirecting you towards something better. That rejection, assume it's protecting you from a misstep. That problem, assume it holds a hidden gift. Not with fake positivity, but with calm, curious trust. You'll be amazed at what starts to happen, not because you forced the universe to change, but because you finally became available to the support, solutions, and synchronicities that were always waiting. If this perspective resonates with you, support our channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with someone who might need it.